Sharon Denham made the gruesome discovery in May when her mother's colleagues said she hadn't arrived for work. It was then she found Robin Denham naked and lying on her bed with a stocking around her neck. The 52-year-old had been strangled to death. Today in Newcastle local court, the drama continued to unfold when the results of a police investigation led to detectives charging Sharon's de facto husband, Anthony McKenny, with her murder. Police allege the father of her two children used a set of spare keys to get into Mrs Denham's home early on the 30th of May, believing she was on her morning walk. They then say Mr McKenny was unexpectedly confronted by her and that a violent struggle led to her death, with robbery as the motive. Robin Denham was due to hand over insurance money to Mr McKenny that day so he could help her buy a new car to replace one which was stolen from her in March. Distraught family members watched on as McKenny was led up from custody, including his partner Sharon, also the daughter of murder victim Robin Denham. Police allege McKenny tampered with the crime scene and that DNA evidence proves Mrs Denham was strangled by hand, not by the stocking around her neck. Listening devices and fingerprint evidence are also part of the prosecution's case, expected to be fully compiled by the end of next month. Helen Kapelos, NBN News.
Justin Norris had to bargain with his coach to earn a week home for Christmas, and that means extra training sessions. So, after the pool, it's out on the bike. The Olympic bronze medalist has enjoyed his time off since Sydney 2000, including recording a CD with some fellow athletes. But now it's back to full-time training.
Basically, it'll be around 60 or 70k a week, and then in February we go up to the Gold Coast for an intensive camp, and that'll be up to 100k a week.
After watching in Melbourne before competing in the recent Skins tournament in Sydney, the 20-year-old says he's now got the motivation back you need to train at 100%.
If you try and force it too much at the start of the season when you're really not ready for it, you waste a lot of mental energy when you need it for later on.
And there's plenty to aim for in 2001 with the World Championships mid-year.
The World Championships is the second biggest competition compared to the Olympics, and I'm only less than a second away from the world record at the moment, so it's definitely a huge incentive for me to keep going.
Jim Callanan, NBN News.
And it's just going to be that piece of economic stimulus that we need and aid our tourism policy, and that's important.
The water was sparkling at Nobby's Beach today and Council is trying to keep it that way. Lord Mayor John Tate was beachside with Santa to illustrate what comes through the storm water drains and onto beaches. Among the prezzies, 5,000 cigarette butts from the mall alone go into the drains each week, not to mention the dog droppings and general rubbish.
Nothing should go down stormwater drains except for rain. So, litter, cigarette butts, oil, even leaves that you sweep up, they all have an impact on creeks and on beaches.
More than $400,000 of the EPA's money is to be spent on the problem, carrying out a range of filtering and rubbish blocking measures throughout Newcastle, including this outfall on Nobby's Beach.
We will be collecting pollutants from that stormwater that's derived from the road surfaces and the car park by grass swales and a sand filter.
The drainage outlets into Throsby Creek will be cleaned up as well, but prevention is better than cure.
And just think before you throw that cigarette butt down or that ice cream carton or something like that. Because all this stuff goes into our harbours, into our creeks and estuaries and out to the ocean.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Tactical response police from the State Protection Support Unit surrounded the Wallsend home, officers sealing off Macquarie and Nelson Streets. For a tense 2 hours, police repeatedly tried to telephone a 30-year-old man visiting a friend's house. Police believed he was armed with a rifle.
We couldn't establish contact with him because the phone in the house was off the hook because there was a child asleep in the house.
The child's mother, who saw police outside her window and went to investigate, was pulled aside. Meantime, an elderly deaf man who'd wandered past police blockades into the siege street momentarily caused panic as officers rushed after him. Police say it all started when the suspect turned up to his ex-girlfriend's house here at 7th Street, New Lambton. She wasn't home, but he became involved in a heated exchange with her mother. She's told police that he then stormed off to his car, showed her he had a rifle and then drove away. Police attention focused on the Wallsend home after the man's car was discovered half an hour later. By 10 o'clock, he was in police custody.
When he emerged from the house, he was walking to a vehicle in the driveway. He was challenged by the State Protection Group Support Unit entry team who were at the front of the house. He was asked to surrender, walk to them. He did, without incident.
A spear gun was later recovered in the man's car, but police failed to find a rifle. He's been charged with stalking and trespassing and will face court tomorrow. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
Bordered on three sides by water, Dyke Point in the middle of Newcastle Harbour is a developer's dream. Once a centre for shipbuilding, the 5.8 hectare site is now surplus to the needs of its owner, the Port Corporation, and it's up for lease.
Probably is the most important piece of real estate as far as the city's concerned and the view across the harbour.
The Port Corp says developers need only be limited by their imaginations. It could become home to the Newcastle Opera House, the new Luna Park perhaps, or the Dyke Point International Casino.
We don't have a preferred use at this point in time. We do have selection criteria, and that will be based on the social and economic benefits to the city.
A long-term lease is being offered to the right bidder, but housing developers need not apply. The Port Corp ruling out a residential development.
We'll wait and see what comes in terms of bids. One of the key criteria is that it must be feasible and economically justifiable.
Meantime, the Port Corporation is selling off the old Carrington pump house building that used to generate power for the cranes at the dike. The crumbling heritage building could fetch up to $1 million. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
These things age, and with age you get deterioration of the panels and the rivets and all the things that hold it together.
The decision everyone knew was coming did so overnight, with the NSL terminating Carlton's licence after just 3 years in the league. It's a blow for Soccer Australia too, who heavily backed the club as one of the new breed, with no ethnic origins.
It's no good pointing the finger at anybody. The fact is that because the club didn't provide the information that it should have done, we're in this situation.
Carlton would have been near the top of the NSL's list of sides to make the reduced 12-team competition next year, until massive debts saw the club collapse.
I think that there may be one or two clubs that may be breathing a sigh of relief. It's not the way it had been planned.
The Soccer Australia board also decided all teams, including Newcastle United, which was to play Carlton this weekend, will receive 3 competition points, regardless if they'd already played the side this season.
At the end of the season, when we reach the top 6, those top 6 teams will be determined on the results that took place between the remaining 15 teams in the competition. And if that's not fair, then nothing is.
The revised table now looks like this, with Sydney Olympic, the big losers, slipping from 1st to 4th, even though it was the only team to actually beat Carlton this season. It does little for Newcastle United, which sits second last, 9 points off the top 6.
Today's sackings have left STP workers reeling.
An agreement could have been thrashed out, and with a bit of goodwill on both sides, they could have come to an arrangement. They could have saved money for everyone, the companies, the workers and everyone. But there's too many egos involved, too many being pig-headed, and greed must come into it somewhere too.
This afternoon, management handed employee and delegate Jim Greenland a list of 14 names and told him to let fellow workers know they were fired. The timing could not have been worse for one co-worker. Minutes earlier, called to hospital to be near his critically ill father.
To have this sort of thing thrust on you at the same time, be told that you've just been fired, I can sympathise with Danny, you know, it's really hard. Sorry.
There are now only 8 workers left. Unions blame STP owners Stephen and Brad Weeks for failing to sign an entitlement agreement. Workers today also voted to step up the union campaign directly targeting the Weeks brothers. One idea being tossed up is to set up camp on the front lawn of the Weeks family home in Valentine on Christmas Day. The company is yet again refusing to comment.
Make sure we can live until the next day and the next day.
Vanessa Trezise, NBN News. Newcastle developer Stronach plans to build 4 4-storey state-of-the-art buildings.
What Honeysuckle has been very keen on is something like Queen's Wharf in Brisbane or Cockle Bay in Sydney. Restaurants and tables and chairs and people milling around the waterfront. And
the old water police and fisheries wharves will be upgraded, the site stretching out to the refurbished railway sheds and down to the Honeysuckle Way roundabout. The leisure centre, to be located next to harbourside land, being cleared to make way for the $75 million Crown Plaza Hotel. To be built next to the hotel, 2 Beckton breakwater apartments, the model of which was unveiled today. All 43 units were snapped up in their first 2 weeks on the market. They sold for between $580,000 and the most expensive of 8 penthouses, $1.5 million.
All of the buyers have been Novocastrian local people, so it shows a surprising strength of the local economy, and all people intend to actually live in the property.
Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
Even in the city, vehicles with bull bars can be found anywhere. But it's not the bull bars themselves that have come into question, rather the add-ons, which could increase the risk of harm to pedestrians in an accident. So a draft plan has been put forward by the RTA to have closer inspection of vehicles to prevent these protrusions causing harm.
We expect that this will start to come in place in the first quarter of next year, and we're not looking at fines. We're not trying to be draconian about this. But it's something that will be dealt with when you go for your pink slip each year.
Most manufactured bars already conform to Standards Australia regulations, which ensure they don't reduce the driver's view or occupant safety. But some people have abused the privilege of having the added protection.
Fishing rod holders, anything that protrudes out the front of the vehicle is technically dangerous and has always been illegal. It's never been enforced.
The proposal is simply a plan to enforce the rules and prevent cars with the dangerous additions from getting through registration. There's little doubt that bull bars do more damage to pedestrians when in an accident than vehicles without bull bars. However, the RTA recognises that they do have a practical use and claim they're not out to ban them completely. The RTA says that extra mountings on bull bars can be used if they are placed at the back of the bars. Adam Harper, NBN News.
It's an unassuming stretch of highway at Wiles Gully, 50 kilometres south of Tamworth. Police say just after midday, 2 men in their 20s driving north in a Holden Commodore crossed to the wrong side of the road, slamming into a Pulsar sedan carrying a couple and a 3-month-old child. An elderly couple in a Camry wagon crashed into the wreckage.
As a result of the initial impact, unfortunately, male and female in the southbound vehicle have received fatal injuries and are deceased, and the driver of the northbound vehicle has also been killed.
Drivers who use the highway daily know the stretch as a black spot.
Notorious because of the blind sections in it. They come around the top corner up here and then all of a sudden they can't see anything coming.
The 25-year-old man and his 20-year-old partner were travelling south with their child from Brisbane to visit relatives.
So close to Christmas, the probability that the occupants of all the vehicles were travelling to see family and friends. It's a very tragic start to the new year, yes, and to the Christmas season.
The current Roads and Traffic Authority campaign is urging motorists to use the New England Highway to take the strain off the Pacific. Unfortunately for these people, the holiday road gamble didn't pay off.
It's frightening. It's actually frightening. So, especially when you come up against something like this.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
The display will go for about 15 minutes and the kids are going to love it because it's a themed display this year.
Given the record financial loss, the Matthew Johns drama and the failure of the Leagues Club, Knights officials had plenty to be nervous about heading into this AGM. It was all smiles afterwards though, retired captain Tony Butterfield elated with his success of being voted in. He joins Rob Robson and Peter Corcoran as new members, while Michael Hill and Mike Nesbitt were re-elected to join the 4 Newcastle Rugby League appointed directors that make up the board. The real surprise though was Corcoran's challenge for Hill's position as chairman. He lost 6-3.
Does it make things difficult?
No, not at all. I mean, in any organisation there are times when everybody gets on well and there are times when you have your differences, but what's important is that when we make decisions we all stick by the decisions and work as a unit.
Hill's just happy to have the chance to try and lead the Knights out of a financial hole, having just recorded a $1.7 million annual loss.
Exactly, it's not appropriate to walk away from a tough year.
A pay TV grant estimated to be worth at least $500,000 will help. However, the board will also have to show cause why the club shouldn't be fined for allegedly breaching the salary cap. If it can't, the club will be fined $186,000, half the amount of what the NRL believes the club has exceeded by. The Knights have until January 15 to reply, with NRL Chief Executive David Moffat to make the final decision.
It'll be a good challenge for me. It'll help my bowls and I'm pretty stoked to make it.
With Adcock Park on the Central Coast chosen as a halfway meeting point for the club's Sydney and Newcastle-based players, there was something of a holiday feel about this morning's training session. Lee Sterry didn't even put them on the scales, but the week's only young.
They know what is expected of professional footballers, so, I'll soon see the ones that have got about 4 or 5 kilos worth of prawns in their belly, so we'll just wait and see.
While a week's break due to the demise of Carlton might have provided a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year is now the team's top priority. Newcastle meets Sydney United at Marathon Stadium this Friday, a team coming off a 3-0 drubbing at the hands of South Melbourne.
Look, they'll come up very motivated because their coach is under a lot of pressure at the moment, and that's always a scary situation. And so the players, I'm pretty sure, will stand up for their coach.
Meanwhile, it's still a case of wait and see as to whether Andy Harper and Asala Massey will play this week.
Making their final preparations at Williamtown this morning, the 4 crewmen will be a safety net for more than 80 yachts for the next 9 days.
Our role is to be available for a quick, immediate response if anything happened, like the bad year of '98.
CHC helicopters volunteered their services to race organiser, the Cruising Yacht Club, for the first time last year. And while it's hoped this event will be incident-free, it's always good to have help at hand, especially when that comes in the form of a helicopter equipped with more than $7 million worth of state-of-the-art equipment.
It's specially designed for search and rescue work. It's got very special electronics on board, a good navigation computer, the ability to hover automatically over water, which is necessary if you're going to do any overwater at night rescues.
The helicopter can withstand fierce conditions like those faced in 1998, and the crew is up to date with first aid and ocean rescue skills. That's peace of mind for the sailors who headed out today, especially with strong winds predicted for tomorrow. Adam Harper, NBN News. Rugging up in the height of summer where temperatures are reaching the 40s may seem a little odd, but on the ice, it's essential. And it's more than just a good way to escape the heat. It's a development camp for anyone keen on playing ice hockey.
They start learning the rules, the safety aspects of the game, how to play in a contact sport properly, really advanced skating, advanced shooting. It just takes them to that top level of what the game's all about.
There are 3 different levels for people to progress before they make even a local team, but they're guided by experienced Canadian players. And in Australia, only New South Wales, South Australia and Victoria play the sport at Super League level, although it's growing.
It looks like in 2002, Queensland will be coming into the league, and of course we're hoping to have a Super League team ourselves.
But that may be some time away. It's a winter sport and is new to the hunter. However, there will be a local competition starting next year. Adam Harper, NBN News.
In the past 12 months in New South Wales, 5 people have been killed and 100 injured in electrical accidents that could have been avoided. Despite continual warnings, that figure is similar to previous years, all accidents occurring in or around the house. Energy Australia says it's the time of year when people are working around the house or enjoying the outdoors, and they need to be reminded of the risks associated with electricity.
Well, one of the most important messages we say this time of the year goes to people who are around overhead power lines if they're doing some handiwork around the home, gardening, or even taking the yacht into the water. It's important to be aware of where power lines are and of the risks that are around and help avoid those accidents.
With children out and about these holidays, it's up to parents to educate before a tragedy strikes.
Yeah, well, in the holidays we do know that children in particular like to explore their local neighbourhoods, so it's probably a good opportunity right now for parents to talk to their children and to hopefully remind them of some of the hazards of electricity.
Families can alleviate danger by not using damaged or broken electrical cords, avoiding submerged cables when anchoring boats, and remembering the all-important message: water and electricity don't mix. This year, it's estimated 20,000 revellers will celebrate on Newcastle's foreshore. Fireworks will be launched from Horseshoe Beach at 9 o'clock. The 15-minute pyrotechnic display, smaller than previous years. $8,000 has been donated towards the light show, but Newcastle Council has spent nothing.
From the response last year, people don't necessarily respond to the big bangs, and maybe they just want a peaceful entree to the new year. There's certainly no budget problems involved. We tailor the budget according to what we see as necessary.
Music sensation The Whitlams are expected to attract 3,500 people to the Queen's Wharf Brewery. Police will be out in force.
No doubt there'll be a certain number of people who will come into town looking to have more of a good night than most people, and we do warn them that they will be given attention by the police who are working on the night.
Half of Wharf Road will be closed down to the Nobbies roundabout. From there, Watt Street also closed to Hunter Street. Motorists are warned they must be out of that area by 4 p.m. on December 31st. There'll be trains into the city every half hour between 6 p.m. and 4 a.m. and there'll be extra buses. You can pick up a copy of the special New Year's Eve timetable from stations, depots, Charlestown Square and Garden City shopping centres. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.